Hi, I'm Christopher Warnock of Renaissance Astrology, and today in this video I'm going to talk about making magic work for you. Now, right off the bat, we need to talk about what magic really is. Because magic, as I often say, magic is not magic. In other words, what comes along with this is this sort of, folk tale, movie, Harry Potter thing. It's this magic is this fantasy of instantly getting what you want without any energy or effort. You put in 10 cents of effort to get millions out of it instantaneously. Get your old boyfriend back with a snap of your fingers. Bewitched, wrinkle your nose, and stuff automatically happens. And this is the other thing too. It always works. It's like 100% of the time, always works. Always get what you want. This is a fantasy. If you go into magic with that expectation, if you go into magic with that hope, it's going to be dashed. And what you're going to end up with is thinking, oh, the magic I'm dealing with is fake. The person I'm dealing with is a fraud, and the whole thing is just a scam. And just go back to your mundane reality. And in fact, magic is real. But what that means is it must work within the confines of reality, which is not to say that reality is just material. Okay? So we're dealing with a situation where reality is, at least in the model that I use, which seems to work pretty well, that material reality is a subset of greater reality, and that spiritual reality is actually more important and primary. And what we're doing with magic is working with the underlying spiritual pattern of reality that determines material reality. So really, I don't see a huge difference between religion and magic. They sort of blend together. You can kind of functionally say, well, magic is trying to get stuff, you know, but that happens in religion as well. And prayer is an excellent example, I think, of working with the spiritual realm. Because I think what people understand that when you pray for something, you don't always get it. That doesn't mean you never get it, and you can actually have miraculous stuff happen. And prayer, particularly daily prayer, regular prayer, has lots of positive effects, both spiritually and even in the material world. But you cannot expect that if you ask for something, you're automatically going to get it in prayer. If you did that, then again, you're not understanding the nature of reality. Another thing about, working with magic or any kind of spiritual work is it's easier to have a spiritual effect with a spiritual action like magic. So, for example, dreams, visions. I mean, lots of clients that have gotten talismans from me have reported that they've had dreams. They got a Mercury talisman, they had a dream of Mercury, and, Mercury told them X, Y, and Z. It happens all the time. Much easier for the spirits to contact you in dreams because, again, that's spiritual consciousness, their consciousness, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, Also, getting visions, intuitions, and understanding. All these things are much easier to get spiritually and much easier for the spirits to produce. Much harder for them to materialize bags of gold. So, that's again, you're asking a lot of them to try to have a material effect when they're a spiritual being. So, I mean, an example of this is algol. It's not uncommon. I mean, I've had hundreds of people report back to me, at least 100, I would say, report back to me that when they started working with algol, that they had problems with electronics or internet or electricity. Again, that makes sense because these are all closer to the spiritual realm than, like I said, trying to move a brick around or something like that. So, what is magic? What can we do with it reliably, or at least more reliably than trying to have some huge, like I said, win the lottery or instantly be the king of whatever? What I would say about it is that magic is very useful for reality warping. So just getting yourself moving things a little bit more in your direction. Camouflage also is really good for that sort of invisibility because people don't even notice you. That's good with magic. That's a consciousness thing though. But in terms of reality warping, I'm saying like, well, we'll get a 1% advantage, and people just say, well, why would I want to bother? 1% advantage. I'm expecting to win the lottery instantly. Why would I want a 1% advantage? But think about it. If you go to the casino and you play blackjack in a good casino, the house only has a 1% edge on you. And with that 1% edge, they can proceed to win every penny that you have. On the other hand, if you count cards, you can get a 1% advantage on the house, and the casino is going to throw you out because they're not going to tolerate that because you're going to win based on that. So that 1% advantage used by someone who knows what they're doing is extremely valuable and is extremely useful. So I think that's I think an excellent view of what can be done and what the power and what the use of it is that this is powerful, but it has to be used in a wise and appropriate way. So I'm going to give a fictional example. I'm not even going to say the source because I really don't. The problem I have with it, this just feeds right back into fantasy. But this particular source, I think, really catches the the sort of essence of the use and effectiveness of magic in a particular way. So let me just read this. It says that spell of sea safety, which they set such much excuse me that spell of sea safety, which they set much store by, never saved a man from storm wind or storm wave, but cast by one who knows the local seas and ways of a boat and skills of a sailor, it weaves some daily safety about the fisherman. So again, you get the sense here of, look, this isn't going to save you from the tsunami, but in your daily work, it's going to give you that edge. It's going to help you. But also it's woven into the whole reality that this is part of your aligning yourself. And again, that's another thing about magic too, is alignment, aligning yourself with reality, allowing things to flow your way. Now, like I said, prayer is also a good example of understanding of how it works. And again, someone who, and I'm sure people do this, they pray for something, they'll get it, and they get all angry about it. They say, oh, Virgin Mary didn't give it to me. It's terrible. It's like, well, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. With angels, and I'm only doing angelic magic, my strong view is that they're only going to give you what you need. Now, people can say that's a cop-out and I want whatever I want, but the reality to me is that once you have contact with these beings and once you sense their power, once you sense how benign they are and how wise they are, then you recognize that it's good to leave things in their hands. But I thought I would give an example. Like I said, in terms of how to work with magic, ultimately, if you want it to work, then you want to basically use it in conjunction with practical mundane efforts. And I'm going to give an example of that. But this is classic. Jason Miller, who I respect a lot, he says, if you're going to do wealth magic, you need to have a budget. You need to have other means of income. You can't have just, oh, I'm going to do this spell or whatever, and then miraculously it's going to save me. You don't do the magic as a last resort. You don't, fail at everything else, and then this is going to save me, last chance sort of thing. You need to be putting the time into it. You need to work at it. You need to build it up. But let me just, I was impelled to do this video because of an example I thought I would give to you. People like to see real life stuff. So I've had a lot of problem with, we're near the woods. We have a lot of deer coming in out of the woods, and they just chow my landscaping, just strip it. And so last year I started using this stuff called liquid fence, which is sort of a spray, and it's not chemicals. What it is it's basically like rotten eggs and garlic. It smells terrible, and apparently the deer just don't like it. I used that, and I still had some deer damage. Not as much as I had before, but it was still definitely some deer damage, particularly on my hosta. They just came in, it's like lettuce for them. So this year, what I did in addition to the liquid fence was I did a regular invocation of the 25th mansion. So every time the moon came into the 25th mansion, I had it set up and did a special invocation, lit incense, and I did that continuously. I've been going to do it throughout the year now, but I did that continuously starting in the spring all the way through till now, and no deer damage. So let me just show you what the 25th mansion looks like. Gorgeous Nigel Jackson image. We do have these available. Not as popular as our wealth or protection talismans, but as I found, a very highly effective talisman if used in conjunction with practical measures. And so that's what I would say about it, is that essentially with a deer, what you want to do is avoid having them make a habit of being in your yard. And so in this case, not only it smelled bad, but I had the spiritual protection there that just, they showed up and they're like, you know what, I don't want to hang out here. I don't want to eat all this stuff, as enticing as it may look. It's smelling terrible, and I'm just getting this vibe that I don't want to be here. So I think that's an excellent example of how to make magic work for you for real. Because again, if you come into this with this idea that I'm going to get whatever I want instantaneously, I'm not going to make any effort to do it, you're going to be disappointed. If you devote yourself to this, if you work at it, if you put the time in with energy with the talismans, and you have practical, pragmatic ways for it to manifest. I mean, again, you're sitting in your apartment, you don't have a job, you're not looking for work, you're just sitting there all by yourself trying to use a talisman. That's not going to work as well as somebody who's got an internet business. And I'll notice that again, third mansion, seventh mansion, I do an invocation when the moon comes around to the third and seventh mansion. They're for all good things. And very typically, I will have a big business bump around the date of the third and seventh mansion every month. So again, that's giving it a way to manifest. It's got a way to work, and we're doing that reality warping. We're kind of moving things in our direction. So I think that's a much more realistic approach, much more effective. I'm happier with it. And like I said, you got that 1% in the blackjack and you can win all the house's money. So what you need to also, like I said, think about how to use that edge as opposed to just expecting everything to just sweep before you. But I'm going to put a link in there for the 25th Mansion if you want to check that out. If for some reason a gardener out there or yard person who wants to protect that. But I think the bigger point is that this is how magic works, and this is the best way to make magic work for you in a realistic way. So I hope you find that interesting and useful. And I was very happy to share that example and of actual magic and actual results with you.